They actually laughed when I walked into that courtroom. My own daughter Patricia and her husband Michael, sitting there in their designer suits, snickering like school children when they saw me shuffle in with my old handbag and sensible shoes. Michael even elbowed the man next to him, probably making some joke about the confused old lady who thought she could defend herself. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. You see, 6 months ago, my husband Robert passed away and left me everything. Every penny of his fortune, every investment, every property. Patricia expected to inherit millions. But Robert's will was crystal clear. It all went to his loving wife, Dorothy Hamilton, not a single dollar to our ungrateful daughter. That's when Patricia decided I must be mentally incompetent. How else could a simple housewife end up with a $60 million estate? She hired lawyers, filed papers claiming I'd forged Robert's signature, that I'd manipulated a dying man. The paperwork painted me as a gold-digging wife who'd somehow tricked her way into an inheritance. I remember sitting in my kitchen that morning, reading the legal documents over my coffee. Patricia was suing her own mother, claiming fraud and elder abuse. She wanted me declared mentally unfit, wanted the court to overturn Robert's will and give her what she believed was rightfully hers. The irony was almost funny, almost. You see, Patricia had always seen me as just Mom, the woman who packed her lunches, drove her to ballet lessons, and kept house while Daddy worked. She never asked about my life before marriage, never wondered why I had law books in my study, never questioned why judges occasionally sent me Christmas cards. Mrs. Hamilton, her lawyer, James Morrison, had said during our deposition, speaking slowly as if I were deaf as well as stupid, "Can you explain to us how a woman with no legal background, no business experience, and no college degree came to possess such detailed knowledge of Mr. Hamilton's business affairs?" I'd smiled sweetly and told him I'd always been good with numbers. Let him think what he wanted. Now, sitting in this courtroom watching my daughter's confident smirk, I almost felt sorry for what was about to happen. Patricia thought she was so clever, so prepared. She had no idea that her simple housewife mother had been reading legal briefs since before she was born. The bailiff called the court to order and Judge Margaret Walsh entered. The moment she saw me, her steps faltered slightly. Our eyes met across the courtroom, and I saw recognition flicker in her gaze. Patricia noticed nothing, too busy whispering with her lawyer about their slam-dunk case against the incompetent old woman. But I was wrong about everything I thought I knew about this day. Let me take you back to where this all started, because the real story began the day Robert died, not the day we walked into that courtroom. I was holding his hand when he passed, just like I'd held it for 35 years of marriage. The doctors had given us 6 months, but Robert only lasted 3. Cancer doesn't care about your wealth or your plans, Dorothy, he'd whispered in those final moments. They're going to come for you. They think you don't know anything, but I made sure you'd be protected. Everything is yours, just like we discussed. I'd kissed his forehead and promised him I'd be fine. Robert knew me better than anyone, including our daughter. The reading of the will happened 2 weeks later, in Robert's lawyer's office. Patricia arrived dressed in black, tissues ready, playing the grieving daughter perfectly. Michael stood beside her, already calculating their inheritance in his head. To my beloved wife, Dorothy Hamilton, the lawyer read, I leave my entire estate, including all properties, investments, bank accounts, and business holdings, valued at approximately $62 million. The silence in that room was deafening. Patricia's tissue box hit the floor. "That's impossible," she said. Voice shaking. "Daddy promised me the house in Martha's Vineyard. He said I'd inherit the business." "The will is quite clear, Mrs. Brooks," the lawyer continued. "Your father left you a family photo and his watch to your husband, Michael. He left his golf clubs." I watched my daughter's face transform from grief to fury in seconds. "This isn't right. Mom doesn't know the first thing about managing money. She'll lose everything within a year." Michael's voice was harder. "We need to see those documents. This has to be some kind of mistake." But there was no mistake. Robert had been planning this for years, updating his will every time Patricia showed her true colors. Like when she borrowed $20,000 for their kitchen renovation and never paid it back. Or when she made fun of my cooking at Michael's promotion party, calling it peasant food in front of his colleagues. Robert saw how they treated me, how they took me for granted. He knew they saw me as weak, incapable, undeserving of respect. After the lawyer's office, Patricia and Michael followed me home. They sat in my living room, the same room where I'd helped Patricia with homework, where I'd celebrated her achievements, where I'd comforted her through heartbreaks. "Mom, be reasonable," Patricia said, her voice honey sweet. "Now you can't possibly manage all this money alone. Why don't you let Michael help you? He's good with finances." Michael nodded eagerly. "We could set up a trust, make sure everything's handled properly. You wouldn't have to worry about any of it." I poured myself tea with steady hands. "I appreciate your concern, but I'm perfectly capable of managing my own affairs." "Are you though?" Patricia's mask slipped slightly. "Mom, you've never even balanced a checkbook. Daddy handled everything." That's when I realized what they were really planning. The lawsuit papers arrived on a Tuesday morning, delivered by a serious young man who looked embarrassed to be serving a grandmother. Patricia had wasted no time.